Suppression Spirit Master is not all about being a big damage dealer and you can destroy Zergs in the right setting and with the right setup. You have so much utility to bring to your group that you can function as a third healer, with the option to opt in with Cold, Baseline Nuke, or the Suppression Spirit Bomb to assist killing your targets. But don't forget about the utility this spec brings. The most important aspect for you to understand when it comes to point blank area of effect abilities like the Bomb and Suppression Spirit Master is how you have a damage drop depending on where you position yourself and the target you hit. If you stand on the very top, there's not a drop off. If you start moving further away and you don't stand on top of the target or targets you're trying to hit, you will see there's a damage drop. This is however different from normal abilities. Normal abilities like the Cold Baseline Nuke on the Spirit Master don't have a damage drop off depending on where you position yourself. As long as you're in range to cast the ability, it will only be calculated by how deep you spec into the spec line, and that will create the variance. It will not be based off how you position yourself. Understanding the options and when to use different commands in your pet bar is very key as well, since you're a pet class. You can use the aggro to find stealthers nearby if you have seen them briefly, and both you and your pet will have different individual chances to find the stealther when you're nearby. Use the passive option whenever you need the pet to just bodyguard for you and give you intervenes versus melee hits. If you are breaking line of sight or hiding from enemies outside and around a corner and you have your pet on follow, click on here and your pet will stand on top of you. And it doesn't work as an AoE anchor. For example, if you imagine enemies coming in here, they can AoE mess on my pet and hit me. However, if I use here, they cannot see the pet. Just don't forget your pet. Click on follow when you're done hiding. A nice little trick for all the pet users who utilizes the pet window. Instead of constantly moving your cursor over and clicking on any of the commands, you can drag the most important or most common commands for you onto your hotbar by holding down shift and left clicking and drag it onto your bar. Right now I am getting hit by this mob and I can't cast because I'm getting hit. However, my pet has an internal cooldown where he can intervene and attack, and therefore, even if I get hit, my pet redirects the damage and I can therefore free cast. Again, I'm getting interrupted, pet intervenes, I can cast. When it comes to leveling as suppression, there's two things I took into consideration and put big emphasis on. For example, how can I pull them up? And in this example I'm clicking on an iceberg and it's showing me to be neutral. And I know from previous experience that this monster is taking additional damage from Spirit. That is the damage type we are dealing with Suppression Spirit Master. So what does this mean? That means since the mob is neutral, I can stand on top of it and deal maximum damage. And since the mob is Spirit weak, I deal additional damage to the mob. When it comes to pulling a mob, there's two different ways I like to do it. Either I send in the pet, or I simply debuff pull and send in the pet. However, whenever you use a debuff pull, whenever the pet misses and you walk up, you will get the aggro until the pet hits. Be aware of this. So we know that we are dealing max damage whenever we can stand on top of the mobs. However, unless they get stunned, if we pick up the aggro after the first bomb, they will move backwards and we will lose some damage. Right now I hit for 1003, and because the mob moved back, I'm only hitting for 850-ish. That's a big damage drop off and there's nothing we can do about it. That is why it's so important that we stack up the mobs and we get the free bomb first. Since position is key, let's make a scenario here where we say I have overpulled, I got an ad and the situation is out of control. What do I do? A favorite trick of mine is to create distance by sprinting, turn around and do a well-timed bomb. Rinse and repeat. So now we put everything together. We have found some Spirit Weak mobs. They're in the RVR frontier, so they give additional bonus. They're melee mobs, so we don't have to worry about stacking them too much. The pet will do that for us. We're gonna use some of the pet commands that we learned about. We're gonna stack up the mobs, pull them back. When they're nicely tight stacked, we're going in with a bomb, and we get the first bomb for free. So I send in the pet. Hopefully I get a lot of body pulls here while I'm picking up the targets I'm sending my pet towards. And as you can see, the mobs are melee, so they're stacking up nicely, and now we got a nice stack. And rinse and repeat. And that's why you don't need a pack healer to set mobs up for you. You don't need a warrior or thing to block guard for you. If you play your class correctly, you can set up the fight for yourself in PvE. In this RVR clip I have Halston playing his warrior. He's walking around shield slamming targets for me, so they stand still for 9 seconds, making sure I can get 2, 3, maybe 4 cast off with maximum damage. That is some of the highest spell damage you can apply in the game without having any debuff train going on. It's super effective and also very hard to pull off due to the positioning requirements, but it's very fun and very rewarding to play. As you can see in this clip, it's very hard to position yourself for maximum damage output. Sometimes you just gotta put yourself in between and hit as many targets as possible, and that's what I'm doing in this clip.